Hey y'all, it's your girl Chef Kyra and welcome back to another episode of New York Eats. Welcome to my food channel where we talk about everything nice, sugar and spice, baby. So for today's episode, we are going to learn and I'm going to teach you how to make a Caribbean dish. Specifically, how to make Escovitch, right? So I got some lovely red snapper from down in Albany, and I'm gonna start off with showing you guys how to season a fish, or how I'm gonna season it, and then we're also gonna make some sides to go along with the fish. I'm gonna show you how to fry it, how to make the Escovitch sauce. So it's gonna be a very impactful and full episode, so stay tuned, get ready for y'all. All right, let's get started. All right y'all, so now we're gonna get to the part of seasoning the fish. So I got a lovely red snapper. Okay, check that out. That is some good looking fish, man, and it's hard to find like whole fish upstate, so it's always a plus. So here are some of the seasonings that I'm gonna be using to season the fish. So we got some kosher salt, we got some fresh black pepper, we got some onion powder, garlic powder, and some paprika. All right, so now that you guys have all of the seasonings that you're gonna be using to season a fish, I have this thing where I like to oil my fish. But before we do that, we're gonna score the fish. Before you even start seasoning, what you want to do is you want to score your fish, right? And I just do about 3 different scores, and you don't want to score into the fish too deep, but just, you know, slightly into the skin, enough where there's an opening where you can get some seasoning in. That you're gonna do is you're gonna get some cooking oil, and you just want to pour enough just to cover each piece of your fish, and you're just gonna massage the fish with the oil. So I use cooking oil, 1 to keep the protein moist, and 2 to help the seasoning stick to the protein, and also just to keep the protein from drying out and, you know, being all like funky and weird while it sits with the seasoning on it overnight. So you just want to take your hand and massage the oil all over the fish, on the outside, and then you also want to get into the cavity of the fish and get oil in there as well. Fish all oiled up, you're gonna want to grab some salt, you're gonna have about that much salt, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, fish seasoning. Now you don't want to do too much because there is some salt in the fish seasoning. This is just to give it extra flavor. So about a good amount, just maybe about a pinch. A touch of ginger, and paprika for color. You have all your seasonings in one dish. You just want to make sure you mix it together really well and make sure it's evenly distributed. And this is what it looks like once it's all mixed together really nice and well. What I'm gonna do is take your seasoning and begin to coat the fish with the seasoning. And you want to pat it into the fish. You want to make sure you get every part of the fish from the head all the way down to the tail. Pat that in, work it into the grooves of the fish, and gently the fish and season it inside. And so this is what your fish will look like once it's nice and seasoned. You want it like really nice, well coated, you know. And y'all check that out. Delicious fish. So now you're just gonna cover this back up. And this is gonna sit overnight just so that those seasonings and everything can really penetrate the fish, so that when it is fried, it's like off the hook, y'all. So now for the next step, being that we have the fish nice and seasoned overnight, now I'm going to show you guys how to prepare the Escovitch sauce, how to prepare some Caribbean style candied yams, and also my favorite, collard greens. Alright y'all, so let's get into this part. Alright y'all, so now we're gonna get to the part where we're gonna make the yams. So I'm just gonna show you the seasonings that I'm gonna be using to create the candy yams. So here I have some, you know, regular yams. We're just gonna peel them and cut them up. So you wanna have some brown sugar, white sugar, ground ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla extract, cloves, and a little whiskey. Butter, cider vinegar, so now what we're going to do is you're just going to cut it in half, right? And it's a little bit easier to do it this way. Then you're going to take that half and cut it this way. And then you're just going to cut these halves into chunks. So you're just going to chop, chop, chop. Alright. And then you'll have little half moons just like this. And you can put that aside in a bowl. Alright y'all, so I have about 1.25 sticks of butter in this pot right now. So what we're gonna do is just make the sauce for the yams. So what I'm gonna start off with is just a couple of cloves. You don't want to do too much because cloves can be pretty strong. So we're just gonna do about about 3 to 4 cloves, maybe 5. So about 6 cloves all together, right? And we want to get that in there just so that those cloves can start to flavor the butter. now we're gonna add in some of the ginger, the ground ginger, and so just gonna put like a touch, nothing too crazy, y'all. Now we can add some cinnamon. So I'm starting off with all of the dry seasonings and herbs, just because you want to like allow those herbs and things like that to, you know, get a chance to kind of like wake up and do they thing. So we got some cinnamon. We're also gonna add some nutmeg. And I have to be honest with y'all, like, I'm the type of person where I love seasoning like this. Like, it's so delicious. Like, best thing since sliced bread. You know, it's all of those holiday you know, seasonings, and you know, it's just good. It's good. So you're gonna add a touch of vanilla extract. And now I'm just gonna mix that up. And you don't want your flame to be too high because you don't want your butter to burn or overheat. So we're just gonna let that cook down for a little bit and let that heat up for about a minute or two. In the meantime, let's get into some of this bourbon. That smells really good, y'all. So I'm not gonna use like the whole thing, even though it's like a little nip of a bottle, but we're just gonna pour about like half of it in there, maybe a little bit more. Then we're also gonna add a touch of apple cider vinegar. I'm gonna mix all of that together. And last but not least, to make everything absolutely perfect, you're gonna add a cup of white sugar, a cup of brown sugar. So now you can bring your flame up to about a medium heat. And so now we're just gonna allow the sugar to melt down and kind of just get it going. And at this point, you can also taste your base and your sauce to make sure that it's to your liking. So you may want to add, you know, more bourbon, maybe more ginger, more cloves, more cinnamon. So this is a really good point to start to taste your mix. Alright, y'all, so that tastes delicious to me. It's definitely giving me Caribbean vibes. So now what we want to do is take all of our potatoes and just drop them in. And now we're just gonna mix the potatoes around in that sauce. Just to make sure that they're nice, well, and evenly coated. So now that we have our yams evenly coated and we have our base made, You're just gonna cover this and sit it to the back of the stove, let it go for itself, and as the potatoes continue to cook, then they'll get nice and tender and soak up all of that delicious flavor. So that's the yams for you. Alright y'all, so now we're gonna make the Escovitch sauce. I have about 2 cups of water here in this pot. Now we're gonna add 1 cup of vinegar, 1 scotch bonnet pepper cut up, 1/4 cup of white sugar, allspice, whole allspice, cloves of smashed fresh peeled garlic, a touch of salt, cracked black pepper. I'm gonna give this a good stir to mix everything together. And make sure that the sugar ends up dissolving. And you want to bring it up to a boil for about a minute or 2, and then kind of let it simmer and steep for the remainder of time for about 5 minutes in total. And then we're just gonna let this sit to the back of the stove, and then we're gonna bring our vegetables in for the sauce as well. Alright y'all, so we have a couple different vegetables that we're gonna be cutting up. I have a big white bowl here to get everything all together. So while your Escovitch water and and vinegar, like the base of the sauce, is heating up and coming up to a boil, now you just want to get your vegetables and things like that cut up. So we have some onion here. Alright, and typically I usually cut it in half, but I'm just gonna put a slit in the onion, and we're just gonna keep the onion whole. Alright, and we'll put those scraps over there. And now you just want to put your onion up on its side, and you want to just cut nice rings just like that, as if you were making onion rings. Okay, another one of our vegetables is going to be a carrot. So you just want to peel your carrot. Ooh, try not to get the peels all over the place like I am. Your top off and the tip. So now we're just gonna cut our carrots, and you're just gonna cut them at an angle. So what you want to do is you want to have your carrot at an angle and your knife at an angle, and you're just gonna slice. And then this is what you're looking for as far as the slices of carrot. As vegetable, I just have some multicolored bell peppers. So I got my green, my orange, my yellow, and red. You can choose whatever colors that you want to have within your sauce. And so you're just going to repeat the same steps as I'm doing with this first bell pepper. So you just cut it in half, and now you want to cut out your pit of seeds. Seeds out, and rinse your bell pepper out. And then you're just going to want to cut them into nice strips. now that we have we have our bell pepper in strips, we're just gonna repeat the same steps with the other bell pepper. All right, y'all, so now I just finished off the vegetables. Like I said, you can still see that they have their vibrant color and they still have a bit of a bite to them, but they're a little bit softened up and they're not as raw as they were when we first cut them. And so now I had added the broth that we made to the vegetables, and now I'm just gonna let the vegetables soak up all of that delicious broth. And yeah, so you're just gonna let it cool out and let it go for itself. In the meantime, I'm gonna show you guys how to get a nice good pot of collard greens going. And I do cook greens. What I like to do is stack up a couple of leaves and then you want to split the leaves down the center, and then you can take those two halves that you already have. And for me personally, like if you're someone who doesn't like having a stem when you're cooking the collard greens, I would advise cutting them. But for me, with my family, I'm used to us like having a stem, the whole, you know, leaf inside the dish. So it's just, I mean, it's fine with me. And then I usually just roll it up. You want to get your knife, you want to cut about I want to say a quarter of an inch thick pieces, because at the end of the day it's gonna wilt down. And then I just cut the stems into smaller pieces, and like I said, it's gonna cook down. So you just want to repeat that process until you finish cutting up all of your greens. And then I'm just gonna put them aside in a bowl. Then we're gonna cut up some bacon, get the fat and the bacon rendered out. And then after that, we're gonna add our greens in, and then some water. Unfortunately for this episode, I don't have any vegetable stock, so I'm just gonna use water. But I would advise using like a vegetable stock or either a chicken stock for this recipe. Slow smoked maplewood thick cut bacon, because you know thick thighs save lives. So I've cut up the bacon into small little bits and pieces. So I like to just put, even though the bacon is gonna have its own fat, I like to just put just a drizzle of oil, just so that the bacon doesn't stick. And get that coated in the pan. So this is about how much bacon I am using for today's batch of collard greens. It's 1 pack of bacon, and I've cut it into small pieces. So this next step that we're going to be working on is just, we're focusing on rendering out the fat from the bacon. So you want to have your heat on about medium heat, and you want to just continue to keep stirring the bacon around. And so all of that oil and fat that gets rendered off of the bacon, you want to keep inside the pan, because that's what we're going to use to cook the actual collard greens down. Then we're going to add the bacon back in and add seasonings and things like that. We have all of this delicious rendered fat in the pot from the bacon, and I have my collard greens that's all cut up. So now we're just gonna cut that. Now just be careful, because it can shoot at you, but you want to just put it in batches. So I'm just gonna let this cook down a bit, add a little salt and pepper, and repeat the same steps for each layer of collard greens. Alright y'all, so let's get to my favorite part, which is going to be frying the fish. So I have a Ziploc baggie of about 1 cup of flour and a good healthy pinch of salt and some paprika. So that's why the flour kind of looks a little pinkish. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can either pan fry it, so you'll coat the fish in flour, shake off any excess flour, and then lay it in some hot oil in the pan. But today I'm gonna deep fry it, so I'm just gonna show you how you would put it on the skewer and then deep fry your fish. But before we deep fry it, what you're gonna do is get your fish that's been sitting and marinating all night. Right, and I like to take out my proteins a little bit before I get to frying them or cooking them or any, you know, cooking process, just so that they can come down to room temp and, you know, cook evenly and give you a great product. So our delicious seasoned fish, as you can see, we're gonna take that and put that inside the Ziploc bag with the flour. And you can either close the bag and shake up the flour around the fish, or either you can use your hands to pat the fish and coat it with flour. So now that we have our fish fully coated in flour, I've shaken off the excess. And now what you want to do is you want to curve your fish like so to make a C. And you're going to stick it from one end through to the next. Okay. And so because my fryer is a bit small as far as the width, I'm just gonna clip off some of the wood so that it can easily go inside the fryer and fry. Bubble over, don't bubble over. Hey y'all, it's your girl Chef Kyra. And nope. Try again. Because audio is not even correct. Okay, there we go.